Welcome back to another biochemistry deep dive. Today we're focusing on enzyme inhibitors, molecules that can reduce or block enzyme activity through different mechanisms. These mechanisms play crucial roles in regulating metabolic pathways and are important in drug design and disease treatment. Enzyme inhibition comes in several flavors: competitive, non-competitive, uncompetitive, and mixed-type inhibition. Each of these affects enzyme kinetics in unique ways, impacting how enzymes interact with substrates and how fast reactions occur. First up, competitive inhibition. Here, inhibitors compete directly with the substrate for the enzyme's active site. These inhibitors often resemble the enzyme's natural substrate, fitting perfectly into the active site. The key point about competitive inhibition is that it can be overcome by increasing the substrate concentration. As more substrate becomes available, it can outcompete the inhibitor, allowing the reaction to reach the same maximum velocity, or Vmax, as it would without the inhibitor. However, to reach this Vmax, a higher substrate concentration is needed. This results in an increase in the apparent Michaelis constant, Km, reflecting a decreased apparent affinity of the enzyme for the substrate. Importantly, Vmax remains unchanged. Next, we have non-competitive inhibition, where the inhibitor binds to an allosteric site instead of the active site. This binding changes the enzyme shape, reducing its catalytic activity. Unlike competitive inhibition, non-competitive inhibition cannot be overcome by adding more substrate. The enzyme's active site is still available for substrate binding, so Km may remain unchanged. However, the enzyme's ability to catalyze the reaction is reduced, causing a decrease in Vmax. Now, let's look at uncompetitive inhibition. In this case, the inhibitor binds only to the enzyme substrate complex at an allosteric site. This prevents the complex from releasing the product, reducing the number of active enzyme substrate complexes. As a result, both Vmax and Km decrease. The substrate binds more tightly to the enzyme, which stabilizes the enzyme substrate complex and reduces the dissociation of the substrate. This makes uncompetitive inhibition unique. It decreases both the maximum velocity and the Michaelis constant. Finally, we have mixed-type inhibition, where the inhibitor can bind to both the free enzyme and the enzyme substrate complex, but with different affinities. This form of inhibition is a blend of competitive and uncompetitive effects. If the inhibitor prefers the free enzyme, it behaves more like a competitive inhibitor, increasing Km and reducing Vmax. If it has a higher affinity for the enzyme substrate complex, it behaves more like an uncompetitive inhibitor, lowering both Km and Vmax. To recap, enzyme inhibitors come in four main types, each affecting enzyme activity in different ways. Competitive inhibitors increase kilometers but leave Vmax unchanged. Non-competitive inhibitors reduce Vmax while Km stays the same. Uncompetitive inhibitors decrease both Km and Vmax. And mixed-type inhibitors have varied effects depending on their binding preference. Want to master enzyme kinetics and inhibition mechanisms for your biochemistry studies or the MCAT? Visit kotc.me for interactive study resources, practice problems, and more to help you excel. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and visit kotc.me for more insights into enzyme behavior and biochemistry. See you next time.